Admiral Park Tae-ho stood alone on the observation deck of his flagship, the Eternal Dawn. Through the massive windows, he could see the stars stretching endlessly into the darkness. 200 years ago, humanity had looked at those same stars with wonder and hope. They had dreamed of friendship with alien species. They had dreamed of peace. Those dreams were dead now. The doors behind him opened with a soft hiss. His aide, Lieutenant Baek Ji-yeon, stepped inside. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. Tae-ho did not turn around. He already knew what she was going to say. "Sir," Ji-yeon said, her voice breaking. "The final report from Horizon 7 has arrived." Tae-ho closed his eyes. Horizon 7 was a small colony on the edge of human space. 12,000 people had lived there. Farmers, teachers, children. His daughter, Salman, had moved there 3 years ago to work as a doctor. She had sent him a message just last week, telling him about the sunset views and the flowers she was growing in her garden. "How many survivors?" Tae-ho asked. Ji-yeon was silent for a long moment. "None, sir. The Valari burned everything. They did not even take prisoners. None." Tae-ho opened his eyes and stared at the stars. 12,000 people. Gone. His daughter. Gone. And for what? Because the Valari wanted to test human defenses. Because they thought humans were weak. Because they knew the Galactic Council would do nothing. This was the third colony the Valari had destroyed in 5 years. The first time, humanity had filed a formal complaint with the Council. The Council had called it a misunderstanding. The second time, humanity had demanded justice. The Council had called it a border dispute. Now, for the third time, humanity had nothing left to say. Tae-ho turned to face Ji-yeon. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with something cold and terrible. "Set course for Earth," he said. "I need to speak with the Assembly." Suntring. Tae-ho. Tae-ho turned to face. Tae-ho. Tae-ho turned to face Ji-yeon. The journey back to Earth took 3 days. Tae-ho spent most of that time alone in his quarters, staring at a photograph of his daughter. She had her mother's smile. She had wanted to help people, to heal them. She had believed that the galaxy was full of wonder. The Valari had killed her anyway. When the Eternal Dawn arrived at Earth, Tae-ho was escorted directly to the United Terran Assembly. The great chamber was filled with representatives from every nation and colony. Secretary General Han Yuri sat at the center, her face tired and sad. She had fought for peace her entire career. She had believed that patience and diplomacy would eventually win, but even she could not ignore what had happened. "Admiral Park," Yuri said, her voice heavy. "We have all seen the reports. We grieve with you. We grieve with all the families of Horizon 7. Tae-ho walked to the center of the chamber and looked around at the assembled leaders. These were the people who had guided humanity through 2 centuries of galactic politics. They had smiled when aliens insulted them. They had apologized when humans were murdered. They had believed that kindness would be rewarded. 200 years, Tae-ho said, his voice quiet but clear. For 200 years, we have been part of the Galactic Council. We have followed their rules. We have respected their traditions. We have offered friendship to every species we met." He paused and looked at Yuri. "And what has it gotten us?" No one answered. "I will tell you what it has gotten us," Tae-ho continued. "It has gotten us contempt. The other species look at us and see weakness. They see soft, emotional creatures who are too afraid to fight back. They attack our colonies because they know we will do nothing. They laugh at us because they know we will smile and ask for peace." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data chip. "This chip contains the final transmission from Horizon 7. Do you want to know what the Valari commander said as his ships burned our people alive? He said, 'The humans will complain to the Council, and the Council will do nothing, and we will take more of their worlds until they have nothing left. The chamber was completely silent. Tejo placed the chip on the podium. He was right. The Council will do nothing. They have already dismissed this as another border dispute. They do not care about human lives. They have never cared. Secretary General Han Yuri leaned forward. What are you suggesting? Admiral. Tejo looked at her with those cold, burning eyes. I am suggesting that we stop asking for permission. I am suggesting that we stop being nice. For 200 years, we have hidden our true strength because we wanted to fit in. We wanted to be good members of the galactic community. But the galactic community has made it clear that they do not want us as members. They want us as victims. He raised his voice so that everyone in the chamber could hear. I am tired of being a victim. I am tired of watching our people die while we file complaints that no one reads. The Valari think we are weak. The Council thinks we are harmless. It is time to show them how wrong they are. Kim Do-wan, the head of Terran Intelligence Services, stood up from his seat. He was a thin man with sharp eyes and a quiet voice. Admiral Park is correct, he said. For decades, my department has maintained certain projects, technologies that we developed but never revealed to the Council, weapons that we built but never used. We did this because we always knew that someday diplomacy would fail. The assembly began to murmur. Many of them had suspected that such projects existed, but hearing it confirmed was something else entirely. Secretary General Han Yuri raised her hand for silence. She looked at Tejo, then at Do-wan, then at the hundreds of representatives watching her. She thought about the colonists who had died. She thought about the children who would never grow up. She thought about every insult humanity had swallowed, every attack they had forgiven. What do you propose? She asked. Tejo stepped forward. Project Conflict, he said. A complete restructuring of humanity's position in the galaxy. No more begging for scraps at the Council's table. No more accepting attacks on our people. From this day forward, humanity will respond to every act of aggression with overwhelming force. We will show the galaxy that we are not victims. We are not weak. We are humans. And we are done being nice. The vote was held that same day. Every nation, every colony, every representative raised their hand in favor. The result was unanimous. Project Conflict was approved. That night, Tejo returned to his ship and looked out at the stars once more. Somewhere out there, the Valari were celebrating their victory. They thought they had broken humanity's spirit. They thought they had won. They had no idea what they had awakened. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, hidden from every satellite and sensor in the galaxy, there was a facility that did not officially exist. It had no name on any map. It had no records in any database. For over a century, only a handful of people knew it was there. General Choi Mireille was one of those people. She walked through the massive underground corridors, her boots echoing on the metal floor. Around her, thousands of engineers and scientists worked at their stations, building things that would terrify the rest of the galaxy. Mireille had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. She had always known that humanity's kindness would eventually run out. Now, it was time to show the galaxy what humans could really do. General, a voice called from behind her. She turned to see Chief Engineer Baek Sujin hurrying toward her, a tablet clutched in her hands. Sujin was young, barely 30, but she was the smartest person Mireille had ever met. She had designed the Ghost Fleet almost single-handedly. The ships are ready, Sujin said, slightly out of breath. All 47 vessels have been activated. They are running at full capacity. Mireille nodded. The Ghost Fleet was humanity's greatest secret. These were ships that could phase in and out of normal space, appearing and disappearing, like phantoms. No alien sensor could track them. No alien weapon could target them. They were invisible, unstoppable, and absolutely deadly. What about the AI swarms? Mireille asked. Deployed and waiting, Sujin replied. Each swarm contains 10 million units. They can strip a battleship down to scrap metal in under 4 minutes. Mireille allowed herself a small smile. For 200 years, humanity had played the role of the weak newcomer. They had hidden their true capabilities because they wanted peace. They had developed weapons they hoped they would never need to use. That hope was gone now. Far above them, on the surface of the Earth, diplomat Li Jinho was preparing for his final mission. He stood in front of a mirror in his small apartment, adjusting his formal uniform. He was 53 years old, and he had spent 30 years trying to make peace with alien species. He had smiled when they insulted him. He had remained calm when they threatened him. He had believed that eventually, understanding would come. Now he was going to deliver a message that would end any chance of understanding forever. His wife, Bora, watched him from the doorway. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. Jinho turned to face her. "They killed 12,000 people on Horizon 7, he said quietly. They have killed tens of thousands more over the years. And every time, I went to the council and asked for justice. And every time, they laughed at me. They are still laughing." He walked over and took her hands in his. "I am not going to ask anymore, Bora. I am going to tell them what is going to happen. And if they do not listen, then they will learn the hard way." 3 days later, Jinho arrived at the Galactic Council headquarters on the neutral world of Thessar Prime. The council chamber was a vast, circular room filled with representatives from over 200 species. Many of them looked at Jinho with contempt as he walked to the speaking platform. Humans were considered the lowest members of the council. They were tolerated, not respected. The Valari ambassador, a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms, watched Jinho with amusement. His name was Keth Voron, and he had personally authorized the attack on Horizon 7. He felt no guilt about the humans who had died. To him, they were nothing more than insects. "The representative from Earth may speak," the council moderator announced. Jinho looked around the chamber. He saw the faces of species who had ignored humanity's pleas for justice. He saw the faces of species who had watched humans die and done nothing. He felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. "Thank you," he said, his voice calm and clear. "I will keep this brief." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. With a click, a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing images of Horizon 7 before and after the attack. The beautiful colony, the burning ruins, the bodies. 3 days ago, the Valari Dominion attacked our colony on Horizon 7, Jinho said. They killed every man, woman, and child. 12,000 people. This was not a battle. This was not a military operation. This was murder. The Valari ambassador laughed out loud. "Murder? We were simply cleaning up a border region. Your people were trespassing in our space." Jinho did not react to the interruption. He continued speaking as if Voron had not said anything. "This is the 3rd such attack in 5 years. Each time, humanity has come to this council, seeking justice. Each time, this council has failed us." The moderator shifted uncomfortably. "Representative Jinho, the council has investigated these incidents thoroughly. We found that..." "You found nothing," Jinho interrupted. "Because you did not want to find anything. You do not care about human lives. You never have." The chamber fell silent. No one had ever spoken to the council like this before. Jinho turned to face the Valari ambassador directly. "Today, I am not here to ask for justice. I am here to deliver an ultimatum." He clicked the device again, and a new display appeared. It showed a list of demands in every major galactic language. 1. The Valari Dominion will immediately release all human prisoners held in their territory. 2. The Valari Dominion will pay full reparations for the destruction of Horizon 7 and all previous attacks. 3. The Valari Dominion will recognize human space as sovereign territory and withdraw all military forces from our borders. The Valari ambassador stood up, his face twisted with rage. You dare to make demands of us? You are nothing. Your species is weak and pathetic. We will burn 100 more of your colonies before we give you anything. Jinho smiled. It was a cold smile, empty of any warmth. I hoped you would say no. He turned off the holographic display and looked around the chamber one last time. Humanity gave the galaxy 200 years of peace and friendship. We asked for nothing but respect. You gave us contempt. You gave us death. He began walking toward the exit. We will not ask again. Whatever happens next is on your hands. As he left the chamber, the Valari ambassador shouted after him. Run back to your little planet, human. When our fleet arrives, there will be nothing left of your species. Jinho did not turn around. He simply kept walking. A small smile on his face. He knew something the Valari did not. The Ghost Fleet was already waiting at the border. The AI swarms were already deployed. And humanity was done being nice. The war was about to begin. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Valari War Fleet was the most powerful force their species had ever assembled. 300 warships, each one bristling with weapons that could crack a planet in half. They moved through space like a swarm of angry predators, confident and hungry for blood. Fleet Commander Keth Vorun stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. He was the same ambassador who had laughed at the human diplomat just days ago. Now he was here to finish what his species had started. He would crush the humans, take their worlds, and prove once and for all that they were nothing. Commander, his tactical officer reported, we are approaching the human border. No enemy ships detected. Vorun smiled with all four of his arms crossed. Of course not. They are probably hiding behind their little planets, hoping we will show mercy. He laughed. They will learn that the Valari do not know that word. The fleet crossed into human space without any resistance. They moved toward the nearest human outpost, a small station orbiting a gas giant. Vorun expected to see human ships fleeing in terror. He expected to hear desperate calls for surrender. Instead, he saw nothing. Empty space. Silent darkness. Strange, Vorun muttered. Where are their defenses? His tactical officer checked the sensors again. I am not detecting anything, Commander. No ships? No weapons platforms? Nothing. Vorun felt a small chill run down his spine. But he pushed it away. The humans were weak. Everyone knew that. They were probably too scared to even fight. Continue forward, he ordered. We will destroy their station and move on to their colonies. The fleet advanced. The human station grew larger on their view screens. Still no resistance. Still no response. The silence was starting to feel wrong. And then the universe tore itself apart. Captain Yoon Sarah watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as her ship phased back into normal space. Around her, 46 other vessels of the Ghost Fleet materialized out of nothing, appearing directly in the middle of the Valari formation. All ships, weapons free, Sarah ordered, her voice cold and steady. No mercy, no survivors. The Indomitable opened fire. Human weapons technology had advanced far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. While other species built bigger guns, humanity had built smarter ones. Their weapons could track targets through dimensional shifts. Their shields could absorb energy and redirect it. Their ships could move through space in ways that should have been impossible. The first Valari ship exploded before it could even raise its shields. Then, the second. Then, the third. In the chaos of the sudden attack, the Valari fleet tried to respond, but their weapons passed harmlessly through the Ghost Fleet ships as they phased in and out of reality. What is happening? Vorun screamed. Target those ships. "We cannot, Commander." His tactical officer shouted back. "They keep disappearing. Our weapons cannot lock onto them." Another explosion rocked the Dominion's wrath, as a human ship materialized beside it, fired a devastating barrage, and vanished again before the Valari could respond. On the Indomitable, Sarah watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. Her crew moved with perfect precision, each person knowing exactly what to do. They had trained for this moment for years. They had waited for this moment for generations. "Deploy the swarms," Sarah ordered. From the belly of each Ghost Fleet ship, clouds of tiny metallic units poured into space. These were the AI swarms, millions of microscopic drones that could eat through any material. They descended on the Valari ships like hungry insects, tearing through hulls and destroying systems from the inside. Vorun watched in horror as ship after ship went dark. The mighty Valari fleet, the pride of his species, was being torn apart by an enemy they could not see, could not touch, could not fight. "Retreat," he finally screamed. "All ships, retreat." But it was too late for retreat. The Ghost Fleet had surrounded them. The AI swarms had disabled their engines. The Valari were trapped in a killing box of their own making. Sergeant Oh Junwoo led his Marine squad through the corridors of a crippled Valari cruiser. The artificial gravity was failing, making every step a struggle. The air was filled with smoke and the screams of dying aliens. Junwoo did not feel any pleasure in what he was doing. He had lost friends on Horizon 7. He had seen the images of dead children. But he was a soldier, not a butcher. He took no joy in killing. "Clear this deck," he ordered his squad. "Disable any weapons you find. Take prisoners if they surrender." Teng. Most of the Valari did not surrender. They fought with desperate fury, unable to believe that humans, weak, pathetic humans, were defeating them. But human Marines were trained for close combat in ways that aliens could not imagine. Humans had evolved as pursuit predators. They had spent millions of years hunting and fighting. War was in their blood. One by one, the Valari ships fell silent. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, 280 Valari warships were destroyed or captured. 20 more had managed to escape, limping back toward their home space with tales of nightmare and horror. Humanity had lost 3 ships against 300. Captain Yoon Sira stood on her bridge and looked at the debris field that had once been the mightiest fleet in Valari history. She felt no triumph. She felt only a cold, empty resolve. This was just the beginning. "Send a message to Admiral Park," she said. "Tell him the first phase is complete." Oh, across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. Every species with access to communications networks watched the battle footage in stunned disbelief. They saw the Ghost Fleet appearing out of nothing. They saw the AI swarms devouring ships. They saw human Marines fighting hand to hand with enemies twice their size and winning. For 200 years, the galaxy had thought humans were weak. They had thought humans were harmless. They had thought humans could be pushed around without consequence. They had been wrong. On the Galactic Council homeworld, representatives from 100 species gathered in emergency session. They watched the footage again and again, trying to understand what they had seen. The humans they had dismissed as primitive newcomers had just annihilated one of the galaxy's most feared military powers in less than an hour. "How is this possible?" one delegate asked, his voice shaking. "The humans were supposed to be weak." Another delegate, older and wiser, shook his head slowly. "They were never weak," he said quietly. "They were patient. They were waiting. And now they are done waiting." On Earth, Admiral Park Tae-ho received Captain Sarah's message with a grim nod. The first battle was won, but he knew this was far from over. The Valari would not accept defeat easily, and other species would soon decide whether to stand with humanity or against them. The galaxy had awoken a sleeping giant. Now, It would have to face the consequences. Tejo looked out at the stars and thought of his daughter. "This is for you, Solman," he whispered. "This is for all of them." The war had truly begun. The news of the Valari defeat traveled faster than any ship could fly. Within hours, every inhabited world in the galaxy knew what had happened. The mighty Valari fleet, 300 warships strong, had been destroyed by a human force less than 1/5 its size. The battle had lasted less than an hour. For the first time in galactic history, other species looked at humanity with something other than contempt. Now, they looked with fear. On the Thandari homeworld, a council of elders gathered in their ancient meeting hall. The Thandari were the only alien species that had ever treated humans with respect. They were small, peaceful beings who valued knowledge over power. They had always believed that humanity had hidden depths. Now those depths had been revealed. "We must send envoys to Earth," the eldest Thandari said. "The humans have proven themselves. We should stand with them before it is too late. But what if the other species unite against humanity?" Another elder asked. "We would be choosing the losing side." The eldest shook his head. "Did you see the battle footage? The humans were not even trying. They have more weapons, more ships, more secrets. If the galaxy goes to war against them, I do not think the galaxy will win." The envoys were sent that same day. On the other side of the galaxy, the Vorn hegemony watched the same footage with very different feelings. The Vorn were ancient and proud. They had ruled their section of space for 10,000 years. They had conquered dozens of species and crushed countless rebellions. They feared nothing. Until now. Supreme Commander Zelos stood before his military council, his massive form casting a shadow over the room. The Vorn were giants, standing over 3 meters tall, with thick gray skin and eyes that glowed like molten metal. They had evolved as apex predators on a world of constant violence. They believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. "The humans have revealed themselves as a threat," Zelos said, his deep voice rumbling like thunder. "They must be contained before they grow too powerful." One of his admirals nodded in agreement. "If we strike now, while they are still celebrating their victory, we can crush them before they spread further." But another advisor, older and more cautious, spoke up. "We should be careful, Supreme Commander. The humans defeated the Valari, with technology we have never seen. We do not know what else they might have." Zelos turned to face the advisor with anger in his glowing eyes. "Are you suggesting that the Vorn should fear these humans? These small, soft creatures who have been the laughingstock of the galaxy for 2 centuries? I am suggesting caution," the advisor replied. "Nothing more." Zelos was silent for a long moment. Then he made his decision. "We will form a coalition. We will gather every species that fears human expansion. Together, we will outnumber them 100 to 1. Not even their hidden weapons will save them then." Back on Earth, Secretary General Han Yuri sat alone in her office, staring at the reports coming in from across human space. The victory at Keth Prime had been complete and overwhelming. Humanity was celebrating. After 200 years of humiliation, they had finally shown the galaxy their true power. But Yuri was not celebrating. She was worried. She had seen the footage from the battle. She had seen human Marines fighting with savage efficiency. She had seen the cold look in Captain Sarah's eyes as she ordered the destruction of the Valari fleet. And she had heard the cheers from human colonies, the calls for more violence, more revenge, more blood. Humanity had been pushed too far for too long. Now that they had started fighting back, Yuri was afraid they would not be able to stop. There was a knock at her door. Admiral Park Tejo entered. He looked tired. The victory had not brought him any peace. Yuri knew that nothing would ever bring him peace after losing his daughter. "The Valari have surrendered," Tejo said, sitting down across from her. "Unconditionally. Their government has fallen. Their military is destroyed. They are begging for mercy. And what mercy will we show them? Yuri asked. Teho was silent for a moment. Commander Shin Unji is leading our occupation forces. She has orders to maintain order and prevent further bloodshed. The Valari people will not be punished for the crimes of their leaders. Yuri felt some relief at that. Good. We cannot become the monsters we fought against. Teho nodded slowly. I agree. But I must be honest with you, Yuri. There are many in our military who want harsher measures. They want revenge for Horizon 7. They want the Valari to suffer as our people suffered. And what do you want? Teho looked at her with those tired, haunted eyes. I want my daughter back. But that is not possible. So instead, I want to make sure that no one ever attacks our people again. That requires strength, not cruelty. Yuri stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city of New Geneva sparkled in the evening light. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware of how close the galaxy was to total war. The Vorn are gathering a coalition, she said. Our intelligence reports suggest they will have thousands of ships within months. I know, Teho replied. General Choi is preparing our response. What response? How can we fight thousands of ships? Teho stood and joined her at the window. I cannot tell you the details, but I can tell you this. The Ghost Fleet was just the beginning. We have been preparing for this war for over a century. We have weapons that would terrify you if you knew about them. Yuri turned to face him. That is exactly what terrifies me. We have weapons so powerful that even you do not want to describe them. What happens when we use them? What happens to our souls? Teho had no answer to that. He simply stood in silence, looking out at the city. Meanwhile, on the occupied Valari homeworld, Commander Shin Unji walked through the burned streets of the capital city. The Valari survivors watched her with fear and hatred in their eyes. She did not blame them. Their world had been conquered. Their military had been destroyed. Everything they believed about themselves had been proven wrong. Unji stopped in front of a group of Valari children huddled near a collapsed building. They looked up at her with wide, terrified eyes. She was the enemy. She was the monster. Slowly, Unji knelt down and reached into her pack. She pulled out a ration bar and held it out to the children. It is safe, she said in their language. You can eat it. The children stared at her in confusion. This was not what they had expected. Their leaders had told them that humans were savages who would kill them all. One of the children, a small girl with gray skin and scared eyes, reached out and took the ration bar. She took a small bite, then looked up at Unji with wonder. Thank you, the girl whispered. Unji nodded and stood up. She looked around at the ruined city and felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. The Valari had started this war, but humanity would decide how it ended. We are not here for revenge, she announced to her troops. We are here to show them that humans are better than what they believed. We will be firm, but we will be fair. Anyone who harms civilians will answer to me, personally. The occupation of the Valari homeworld began. It would not be easy. There would be resistance, hatred, and violence. But Unji was determined to prove something to the galaxy. Humanity could be warriors, but they did not have to be monsters. As the sun set on the conquered world, Unji looked up at the stars and wondered what was coming next. The Vorn coalition was gathering. More battles were ahead. More death. More destruction. But for now, she had a job to do, and she would do it with honor. Deep in Vorn space, the largest military gathering in galactic history was taking shape. Ships from 12 different species filled the void around the fortress world of Krath, their hulls gleaming with weapons and armor. Supreme Commander Zelos stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternity's Edge, and watched his coalition assemble with grim satisfaction. 10,000 ships, his aide reported. The largest fleet ever created. With this force, we can crush any enemy. Zelos nodded slowly. The humans had surprised everyone with their hidden technology. But numbers still mattered. No matter how advanced their weapons were, they could not fight 10,000 ships at once. The coalition would swarm over them like a tide of destruction. "Send word to all commanders," Zelos ordered. "We move toward human space in 3 days. This will be a war of extermination. We will not stop until every human world is ash." His aide hesitated. "Supreme Commander, some of our allies are nervous. They have seen what the humans did to the Velari. They wonder if we are making a mistake." Zelos turned to face his aide, his glowing eyes burning with fury. "We will strike with overwhelming force and crush the humans before they can respond." He walked to the viewport and stared out at his fleet. "The humans think they have awakened. They think they have power. They are about to learn that power means nothing against the united will of the galaxy." Back on Earth, humanity was preparing as well, but their preparations were very different. Dr. An Minho stood in the control room of the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever created, the Prometheus Array. He was a small man with gray hair and tired eyes, and he had spent the last 20 years building something that haunted his nightmares. The Prometheus Array was a network of hidden stations scattered across human space. Each station contained technology that could destabilize a star, causing it to explode in a supernova that would destroy everything in its system. It was not a weapon meant for battle. It was a weapon meant for annihilation. General Choi Mirai entered the control room and stood beside him. "Is it ready?" she asked. Minho nodded slowly. "It is ready. But I hope we never have to use it. This weapon does not win wars. It ends civilizations." "That is the point," Mirai replied. "The coalition must understand that if they push us too far, we will take them with us. This is not about victory. This is about deterrence." Minho looked at the controls in front of him. With a single command, he could kill billions. He could destroy worlds that had existed for millions of years. The weight of that power made him feel sick. "I became a scientist to help people," he said quietly. "I wanted to discover new things, to push the boundaries of knowledge. I never wanted this." Mirai put a hand on his shoulder. "None of us wanted this. But the galaxy gave us no choice. We tried peace. We tried diplomacy. They answered with murder. Now we must speak the only language they understand." In the intelligence headquarters beneath Seoul, Kim Do-won was preparing a different kind of weapon. He sat in a dark room surrounded by screens, each one showing data from agents scattered across the galaxy. Do-won was not a soldier. He was a spy. And he was about to tear the coalition apart, from the inside. "The Thandari ambassador has agreed to help us," one of his officers reported. "She will leak the information about the Prometheus Array to the coalition through back channels." Do-won nodded. "Make sure the leak looks accidental. The Vorn must believe they discovered this information through their own intelligence network. If they suspect we wanted them to know, they will assume it is a bluff." The officer hesitated. "Sir, is it a bluff?" Do-won was silent for a long moment. "No," he finally said. "It is not a bluff. The array is real. If the coalition attacks Earth, we will use it. We will destroy their homeworlds. Every single one. But that would kill billions of innocent people." "Yes," Do-won replied. "It would. And the coalition knows that we know this. They will have to decide if destroying humanity is worth losing everything they have built. I am betting that for most of them, it is not." The leak happened 3 days later. Intelligence officers across the coalition received detailed information about the Prometheus Array, its location, its capabilities, and most importantly, then, Possible say, then in Fiverr do, the fact that it was programmed to activate automatically if Earth was destroyed. The effect was immediate. On the fortress world of Krath, chaos erupted. 5 species withdrew from the coalition within hours. Their leaders had joined to gain power and territory, not to risk the annihilation of their homeworlds. The Prometheus array changed everything. "Cowards!" Zelos roared as he watched the ships departing. "They run at the first sign of danger." His aide approached carefully. "Supreme Commander, perhaps we should reconsider. The humans have proven they are willing to die fighting. If they truly have this weapon, they are bluffing," Zelos interrupted. "Humans are soft. They care too much about morality and justice. They would never actually destroy entire worlds. The Valari thought humans would never fight back at all," the aide said quietly. "They were wrong." Zelos glared at him but said nothing. The doubt was starting to creep in, even for him. In the end, 7 species remained in the coalition. Their combined fleet numbered 4,000 ships, less than half of what Zelos had planned. But still, far more than anything humanity could put on the battlefield. "It will be enough," Zelos declared to his remaining commanders. "We still outnumber them 10 to 1. Their tricks and hidden weapons will not save them against overwhelming force." But as the coalition fleet prepared to move, Zelos could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The humans had been underestimated once before. The Valari had paid the price. Now the entire coalition was betting that they could succeed where the Valari had failed. On Earth, Admiral Park Tejo watched the coalition fleet begin its journey toward human space. 800 human ships stood ready to defend their home. 800 against 4,000. The odds were terrible. But Tejo had seen terrible odds before, and he had seen what humans could do when they had no choice but to fight. "Contact General Choi," he ordered. "Tell her to prepare everything. The Ghost Fleet, the AI swarms, the defense platforms, everything. If they want a war of extinction, we will give them something they will never forget." He paused and looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. 4,000 ships, carrying millions of soldiers, all coming to destroy everything humanity had built. "They think numbers will win this war," he said quietly. "They are about to learn that humans do not fight with numbers. We fight with everything we have. And we never, ever, give up." The final battle was coming, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, like a dark cloud covering the stars. 4,000 warships, representing 7 of the most powerful species in the galaxy, spread across millions of kilometers of space. At their center, the Vorn flagship Eternity's Edge led the way. Supreme Commander Zelos standing on its bridge with confidence in his heart. "Begin the advance," Zelos ordered. "Destroy everything in our path." From the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Admiral Park Tejo watched the enemy fleet approach. 800 human ships waited in formation around Earth and Mars, positioned to defend every approach to their home. Compared to the coalition armada, they looked like a handful of stones standing against a tidal wave. But Tejo was not afraid. He had been waiting for this moment his entire life. "All ships. This is Admiral Park," he announced through the fleet-wide channel. "The enemy thinks they have come to destroy us. They think their numbers will overwhelm our defenses. They are wrong." He paused, letting his words sink in. "For 200 years, we pretended to be weak. We endured their insults. We buried our dead. We waited. Now, the waiting is over. Today, we show the galaxy who we really are. Today, we fight not just for survival, but for every human who has ever been told they were not good enough. Fight well, fight hard, and make them remember this day forever." The battle began. Captain Yoon Sarah led the Ghost Fleet in the opening attack. Her 47 ships phased into reality directly in the middle of the coalition formation. Weapons, blazing. The enemy had studied the Battle of Keth Prime. They had prepared countermeasures. They had trained their crews to respond to ships that could appear and disappear at will. It was not enough. The Ghost Fleet moved like shadows through the coalition lines. They appeared, fired devastating volleys, and vanished before return fire could reach them. Coalition ships exploded in chains of destruction as human weapons tore through shields that were supposed to be unbreakable. "Stay in formation," Zelos roared. "Do not break ranks." But his orders could not stop the chaos. The AI swarms descended on the Coalition fleet like hungry locusts, eating through hulls and destroying critical systems. Ships lost power, lost weapons, lost everything. As millions of tiny machines consumed them from the inside, Sergeant Oh Junwoo led his Marine squad through the corridors of a crippled Vorn battleship. The artificial gravity had failed, and the massive Vorn soldiers moved clumsily in zero gravity, while human Marines flew through the air like deadly dancers. "Clear this section," Junwoo ordered, firing his weapon at a group of Vorn defenders. The aliens were twice his size, but size meant nothing in close combat. Humans were faster, more adaptable, more determined. They had evolved to chase prey for days without rest. They had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They did not know how to give up. One by one, the Vorn fell. Back in space, the battle raged across the solar system. Coalition ships tried to push through to Earth, but human defense platforms created killing fields that destroyed dozens of vessels at a time. The dimensional fold drives of the Ghost Fleet created gravity wells that crushed enemy formations, sending ships spinning out of control into each other. Zelos watched his fleet being torn apart and felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. "This is impossible," he whispered. "We outnumber them. 5-1. How are they doing this?" His tactical officer was frantically working the controls. "Their weapons are more advanced than anything we have seen. Their ships move in ways our sensors cannot track. And their soldiers." He shook his head. "Their soldiers fight like demons. They do not retreat. They do not surrender." "Then we must press the attack," Zelos shouted. "We have more ships. We have more soldiers. Send everything we have at their homeworld." The Coalition fleet surged forward, throwing everything they had at Earth. Human losses began to mount. Ships that had fought bravely were destroyed. Crews that had served for years were killed in an instant. The cost of victory was being paid in blood. On the Indomitable, Captain Sierra took a hit that crippled her engines. Her ship was dead in space, unable to phase, unable to run. A Vorn cruiser moved in for the kill. "All hands, prepare for boarding," Sierra announced calmly. "We fight to the last." But before the Vorn could dock, a human destroyer swooped in and destroyed the enemy cruiser with a suicide run, ramming it at full speed. The crew of that destroyer, 87 men and women, died so that Sierra and her crew could live. That was how humans fought. They protected each other. They sacrificed for each other. They loved each other. And that love made them stronger than any weapon. The battle lasted 3 days. 3 days of constant fighting. 3 days of death and destruction on both sides. 3 days that changed the galaxy forever. On the morning of the 4th day, Sergeant Junwoo and his Marines breached the command deck of the Eternity's Edge. Supreme Commander Zelos stood surrounded by his personal guards, a weapon in each of his 4 hands. "You think you have won?" Zelos roared. "Even if you kill me, more will come. The galaxy will never accept you." Junwoo looked at the alien commander who had wanted to exterminate his species. He felt no hatred. He felt only a tired determination to end this war. "The galaxy does not have to accept us," Junwoo said. "They just have to leave us alone." Zelos charged. His guards charged with him. The fighting was brutal and short. When it was over, Zelos was on the ground, wounded, but alive. His guards were dead. Junwoo stood over him. A weapon pointed at his head. "Kill me," Zelos spat. "That is what conquerors do." Junwoo shook his head. "We are not conquerors. We are survivors. And you are going to stand trial for the crimes you ordered. Every world you wanted to destroy will watch you face justice." He gestured to his Marines. "Take him to the brig. Make sure he is treated according to the rules of war. Trait, 2. The capture of Zelos broke the coalition's will to fight. One by one, enemy ships began to surrender. The admirals who had followed the Vorn into battle saw that their cause was lost. They lowered their weapons. They stopped their engines. They gave up. On Earth, Dr. An Minho sat at the controls of the Prometheus array, his finger hovering over the activation switch. He had watched the battle for 3 days, ready to destroy the galaxy if Earth fell. Now he lowered his hand and wept with relief. The order never came. Earth survived. Humanity survived. And the galaxy would never forget what they had witnessed. Admiral Park Tae-ho stood on the observation deck of his damaged flagship and looked out at the debris field where the coalition fleet had died. Hundreds of human ships had been destroyed. Thousands of human soldiers had given their lives. The cost of victory was higher than anyone had wanted, but they had won. Against impossible odds. Against enemies who wanted to wipe them from existence. Humans had won. Tae-ho closed his eyes and thought of his daughter. He thought of Horizon 7. He thought of every colony that had burned. Every innocent who had died. "We did it, Samin," he whispered. "We showed them who we are." The Battle of Seoul was over. But the war was not quite finished. There was still one more task to complete. Building a peace that would last. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The old Galactic Council was dissolved, its members scattered and powerless. The species that had once looked down on humanity now sent ambassadors to Earth, hoping for treaties and trade agreements. The balance of power had shifted forever. Admiral Park Tae-ho stood alone on a hillside on the colony world of New Haven. The wind blew gently across the grass, carrying the scent of flowers and fresh earth. In front of him, a simple memorial wall stretched toward the horizon, covered with names carved into white stone. 12,000 names. The victims of Horizon 7. He found his daughter's name near the center of the wall. Park Samin. Tae-ho reached out and touched the carved letters. They felt cold under his fingers. Cold and final. "I did what I promised," he said quietly. "I made them pay. I made them understand. But I would give it all away, every victory, every ship, every moment of triumph, just to see your smile one more time." There was no answer. There never would be. Tae-ho placed a small flower at the base of the wall and turned away. He had retired from the military 6 months ago. He was the most famous human alive. The architect of humanity's victory. The man who had brought the galaxy to its knees. Politicians had begged him to run for office. Generals had asked him to stay in command. Colonists had named their children after him. He had refused everything. He did not want power. He did not want glory. He just wanted peace. A shuttle was waiting for him at the edge of the memorial grounds. He climbed aboard and watched through the window as New Haven grew smaller below him. Somewhere down there, people were building new homes, starting new lives, raising children who would never know what it felt like to be afraid of the sky. That was worth fighting for. That was worth everything. On Earth, Secretary General Han Yuri was preparing for the most important speech of her career. The Grand Hall of the United Terran Assembly was filled with representatives from across human space and beyond. For the first time in history, alien diplomats sat among them, the Thandari. Their loyal allies, but also species that had once been enemies. Yuri took a deep breath and stepped to the podium. "1 year ago, our species faced extinction," she began. "The galaxy had decided that humans were a threat to be eliminated. They sent 4,000 ships to destroy our home, to wipe us from existence. They failed." She paused, letting the words settle over the crowd. "But our victory came at a terrible cost. We lost ships. We lost soldiers. We lost friends and family members who will never come back. We also lost something else, something harder to measure. We lost our innocence. For 200 years, we believed that kindness would be rewarded. We believed that if we were patient and peaceful, The galaxy would eventually accept us. We were wrong. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Some agreed. Some looked uncomfortable. All were listening. Today, we begin building something new. Not the old council, which ignored the weak and protected the strong. Not the old order, which treated some species as valuable and others as disposable. We are building something called the Terran Accords. A new alliance based on mutual respect, mutual defense, and mutual responsibility. She gestured to the alien diplomats in the audience. Any species that joins the Accords agrees to 3 principles. First, no member shall attack another member, for any reason. Second, an attack on one member is an attack on all members. Third, all members are equal, regardless of how long they have existed or how powerful they are. A Thandari diplomat stood and bowed in the traditional manner of her species. The Thandari Republic accepts these terms with honor. We have always believed in the potential of humanity. Honor 43. Honor 43. You have proven us right. One by one, other species stood to announce their acceptance. Some were former enemies who had learned the hard way that humans were not to be underestimated. Some were neutral species who saw the opportunity for protection and trade. All of them understood that the galaxy had changed, and they needed to change with it. The species that had participated in the coalition against humanity were not forgotten. They were required to pay reparations for the damage they had caused. They were required to submit to human oversight for 50 years. They were required to acknowledge their crimes publicly. It was not revenge. It was accountability. There was a difference. Commander Shin Unji had spent the past year overseeing the occupation of the former coalition worlds. Now she was being given a new role: humanity's permanent representative to the Terran Accords. She was the face of human diplomacy, the person who would build relationships with species across the galaxy. She was also the person who had to give the final speech at the founding ceremony. Unji walked to the podium and looked out at the assembled crowd. She thought about everything that had led to this moment. The massacres, the battles, the occupation, the long months of negotiation and reconstruction. She thought about the Valari child who had taken a ration bar from her hand. She thought about the Vorn soldiers she had fought in corridors filled with smoke and blood. For 200 years, she began, humanity asked only for peace. We offered friendship to any species that would take it. We endured insults and attacks because we believed in diplomacy. We believed that if we were patient, understanding would come. She shook her head slowly. We were wrong to wait so long. Our patience was seen as weakness. Our kindness was seen as an invitation to attack. Every year we waited, more of our people died. Her voice hardened. But we were not wrong to hope. We were not wrong to believe that the galaxy could be better. Today, we are not here to celebrate victory. We are here to build peace, real peace, based on strength and respect, instead of submission and fear. She looked directly at the alien diplomats. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to conquer your worlds or control your governments. We just want to live in safety. We want our children to grow up without fear. And we want every species in the galaxy to have that same opportunity. She raised her hand toward the great dome above them, where stars were visible through the transparent ceiling. Never again will humanity beg for a seat at the table. We built our own table, and all are welcome to sit as equals. She paused, then added with steel in her voice. Or not at all. The crowd erupted in applause, human and alien alike. For the first time in galactic history, a new order was being born. Not through conquest, but through strength. Not through domination, but through deterrence. Humanity had finally found its place among the stars. That evening, on a quiet colony world far from Earth, Admiral Park Tejo sat on the porch of his small house and watched the sunset. The sky turned orange and pink and purple, colors that reminded him of the sunset Salmon had described in her last message. He was not a hero anymore. He was not an admiral, or a leader, or a symbol. He was just an old man who had done terrible things for necessary reasons, and who now had to live with the weight of those decisions. But as he watched the sky darken and the first stars appear, he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Peace. The galaxy was changed. Humanity was safe. The future was uncertain, but full of possibility. And somewhere out there, in the endless darkness between the stars, other species were learning a lesson that humanity had always known. Never push someone too far. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Never assume that the quiet ones have nothing left to fight for. Because when humans finally decided to fight back, they did not stop until the fight was won. Tejo smiled and closed his eyes. The war was over. The long night was ending. And tomorrow, for the first time in a very long time, the sun would rise on a galaxy where humans were finally free.